All right, so let's talk about best practices when talking about coding. So I got a basic application. There is probably there's nothing on it actually, so you can ignore everything. So far, it's just a hi message. So I would like to present you few problems and then how to deal with them. So first of all, let me open what we got. As I said, it's just a very simplistic hi message. Yeah, nothing particularly exciting here. The first thing is, probably you notice that when I type, I never have to save my files. This thing happens automatically. You have to manually save files. Probably you notice that when you change a file, you got a white disk, a white circle on your tab. That means the file hasn't been saved. Because it hasn't been saved, if you check on the browser, the browser is not going to pick your changes because you didn't change them. Yeah, you can save them, Control S, Command S, whatever, but that's a bit exhausting and it's error prone. Why is it error prone? Because if you got one file, it's easy to remember to save it. However, if you're playing with 4 or 5 files in parallel, we'll talk about file structure in a minute. Once that happens, once that you come across that situation, it is easy to forget saving any of the resources. And as soon as you fail to save any of the files, the result won't be the expected. So, is there a way to automate that process? Yes, thankfully with VS Code we can save the files automatically. Let me show you how that works. If you select code and then preferences and then settings, if you search autosave, I believe it is, here you go. If you search autosave, let's pay attention to the first 2 entries. The first one is by default off, autosave off. That means that VS Code is not gonna help you at all. However, if you change from off to after delay, this is my favorite setting. After delay means the files will be automatically saved once you stop typing, let's say, after some delay in milliseconds. And that's actually the next input. You see, in my particular case, that means half a second after I stop coding, my files will be saved automatically. You may be thinking, why half a second and not 1 second and not 0? Well, that's a bit personal. You know, guys, that when you save a file, probably you notice at the bottom, the terminal is trying to bundle your files, things like that. Based on my experience, if the number you put here is very low, like 100 or 50 or even 0, in some cases that won't work. You will think everything has been saved, you will check on your web browser, and then you will see that in reality your changes were not picked, so you need to refresh the browser manually. So you need to play around. Generally speaking, I think values between 100 milliseconds and half a second are safe. Yeah? So try with 100, for instance. I think less than 100 is ignored, so if you put 0, unless that has changed recently, I think that you will be ignored directly. Yeah, so that won't work at all. But I think if you put 100, that should work. So personally speaking, let me recommend you to put 100. Play a bit with that. If you think that everything works fine, then keep it. If you feel like sometimes when you do a change, the browser doesn't pick your change, try to increase the number. The larger the project you are working with is, the more likely you are to increase that timer. So for instance, on the Codery project, we got, I think, almost 100,000 lines of code, which is not massive, but it's definitely not something trivial anymore. So once I got 100 lines of code on my project, then, I noticed that because of whatever reason that goes beyond the scope of this session, giving us a very low number is sometimes not ideal. It doesn't work all the time. Okay? So that's the first thing. Make sure you keep the autosave setting changed, and then as soon as I change something, you see at the bottom of my console, pop up. Once I stop coding, then pop, half a second, and then my changes got save, and then I got my weird title on the screen. Any questions? No? Cool. I think it's very, very handy. It's very useful. Yeah, it's very useful. It will take you. Very useful. Cool. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Maxim, for the feedback. All right. So now let's talk about best practices from a coding point of view, purely coding point of view. If you remember, last week we presented the first component. Let me create the component again. So imagine that I got a component called movie. Yeah, you remember we talked about that last week. So let me create it again, a simplified version of the movie. I don't care about the picture, just the title. Yeah. So if you remember on the last week, and if you think I'm speaking Chinese, please watch the video that we recorded. Not sure if it was on Wednesday or Thursday last week at the end of the day. Yeah. So and then here we type div and then movie. Oh, sorry guys. I selected Siri. Sorry Siri, I don't want to talk to you right now. Sorry. Cool. So I got the movie title, and then I will display the title of my movie. So, can anyone tell me how can I display the title of one of my favorite movies? What else do I need to do? Props. All right. What else, Vicky? Where? Curly braces here. Yep. Props of title. Correct. Brilliant. Thank you, Vicky. And now anyone apart from Vicky can tell me how to complete the exercise. Yep. Class name equals title, like that. And then what? All right, so the signing, for instance. Wait a minute, Aaron. I think, Aaron, if you're trying to speak, you are like talking from Mordor, from very, very far away. I don't know what. We can barely hear you. Yeah. So let me check. Someone is typing something. So. Yeah, my microphone not working. Yeah, sorry, Aaron. Yeah, I don't know what's. You can speak very loud, very, 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 very loud. Probably your neighbors are not gonna like it. Cool. So, guys, what do you think? Will this work or not? No, why not? Look at what Elena said. Guys, we are literally ignoring the movie. Yes, we are displaying. If I show you the result. Yeah, we got the signing here, fantastic. But then what? I mean, if I remove the component, then it will still work, right? So there is no. What's the point of creating a component we are not using? So how can we bind? How can we use the component effectively? Elena, you were saying something before. Yes. Yeah, tags. Yeah. Yeah, and then what? Correct. Yeah, that's correct, Elena. You see, we don't even need it. I mean, the H1. I mean, that's okay if we want to split the title. Yeah. So, my list of movies. Yeah, something like that. All right. So, yeah. I mean, if we try that, actually, what, guys? Look, I got lots of. Close the tag. How? Like that? No. Like that? Like that? Slash? Yeah, correct. That's the most beautiful way of self-closing a component. You see? Slash and then the tag closing symbol. Alright, let's see if it works. Fantastic. You see, it's a bit small. I don't care about UI. We'll talk about UI this afternoon. But for now, See, it works, right? Movie title designing. And now, of course, I can call the movie component as many times as I want. So let me show you the movie I watched yesterday. Sharktopus versus Whale Wolf. And my plan for today is to watch next one, Sharktopus versus Terracuda. Yeah, it's interesting because you know who won the fight, right? Because the title is spoiling the results of the previous. But that's a different story. Anyway, you got 3 movies, and then you got the 3 titles. Fantastic, and that's okay, guys. I think as a starting point, that's great. I mean, some of you will shortly start on task number 8, 9, pair programming, stuff like that. As part of that process, you are about to create your first component. Yeah, so I hope this is useful. But then, even though at the moment everything looks okay, because I got just few lines, very simple, eventually that will grow. And once you got 100,000 lines of code, as I got at Codery, you don't really want to have a file app.js with 100,000 lines of code. We'll talk about the implications of dealing with large files next month. Because on the next month, you're gonna work on a new application, and at that time, it will be vital. It will be vital to separate your efforts. It will be vital because otherwise you have something called conflicts. What happens if, for instance, I'm changing line number 6, and at the same time, Elijah is changing line number 6 as well? We have a conflict because 2 people decided to change the same line. Yeah? So we'll talk about how to deal and how to prevent from having conflicts. For now, we don't need to go that far to realize, hopefully, that we don't really want to have large files, because then it will be much more difficult to manipulate your source code. So, what's the opposite of dealing with large files? Well, playing with small ones. Yeah. In other words, let's have a look to how to extract, how to move my content away from app.js. App.js, that's the entry file. Yeah, that's the root file of every project. Fantastic. But now I don't want to have my components inside of app.js. I want to move them to a new file. So let me show you my favorite way of solving the process. Technically speaking, I may create a new file here called movie.js, and I could cut and paste that component into that file. However, let me do something a bit sexier. Let me create, rather than a new file, let me create a new folder called movie. So once I got a new folder called movie, guys, note the capital M. So if my component is called movie with capital M, I'm creating a new folder called movie with capital M, and then I'm creating a new file called movie.js with capital M too. Yeah? Why? Well, just for readability. Technically speaking, I could call it Jeremy Corbyn, yeah, and it will be all good. However, from a readability point of view, that won't help. So let me call it movie folder with a file called movie.js. And now what? Well, now look, I will extract my movie component from app.js, and then I will paste it into my movie component. You see, I got my, probably I can keep everything open so you can get the whole the big picture of the setup of my project. Yeah. On the left hand side, I got my app. On the right hand side, I got my movie component. And now my question is, will this work? That's a very interesting principle in modern JavaScript. If you pay attention to the terminal, to the server, I'm getting some errors. Movie is not defined. What that means? Guys, whenever you create a function in JavaScript, by definition, by default, that function remains private to the file. So if I create a function called movie, by definition, it will be only available here as part of my movie component. On the left hand side, likewise, if I got a function called app, that function will be only available as part of the app component. Okay? So the functions remain private. That's a basic principle about how JavaScript works. But you may be thinking, and what happens if I want to release, if I want to make a component available to other components, like in this particular case? I don't want to keep the movie component private. I want to use it somewhere else on the app.js component. So can anyone tell me how to make the movie component public or available to be integrated alongside other components? Correct. So first of all, we have to export it. Yeah, that's the first action. We have to export it. And how do we export it? Let me show you. Let me show you the easiest way to export a function. We need to type two words, two keywords in JavaScript. The first one is export. Yeah. So export function movie, that means that other components may import it in a minute. Okay? But let me show you another keyword, which is optional, but I will show you the benefits of the new keyword. The new keyword is called default. So the keyword default, you may have seen that before, means that's the main function that the movie component is exporting. What the main function means? The main function means that, technically speaking, movie.js may export other secondary components, but that's the main one. So once again, this is readability. That's the way you tell your colleagues, hey, my intention is to make this component the main one, because that's the export default. So once you have exported your component on the right hand side, now we have to import it. Yeah, you know, like any product that we consume. Yeah, apples from South Africa. First of all, the apples are exported and then they are imported. Yeah, that was probably an unfortunate example. I think British apples are quite good. But anyway, I hope you get the point. Yeah, you export something and then someone else imports it somewhere else. Yeah? So that's the same principle. So now the question is, how do we import it? Look at the syntax, because I think it's pretty straightforward. So we type import, then the name of the function, movie, and then the location of that component. So where the movie component is. Look, single quotes, and now we need to find out where that component is. On the last week, we already talked about that, referring to the movie pictures, Megashark and things like that, if you remember. So that's the same process. So I type /, and then, thankfully, that's pretty cool, right? So VS Code has some sort of interactive dialogue where I can navigate through the folder structure. So I want to access movie component, and then inside of the movie component, I got my movie file. So there are a couple of things that you may notice. First of all, you may be thinking, why you didn't specify the extension of the movie file? You see, movie/movie. Why not something like that? Well, that's optional. That's optional. So React, one of the tools that React is using, has the ability to determine the extension of the files. Personally, I would recommend you to use the extension, because then, from a readability point of view, you are making a bold statement about the file you are trying to import. Yeah, we'll see in a minute. We'll see in a few minutes how to create new files and how to deal with multiple files at the same time. But for now, I think personally that's the most appropriate way, at least at the beginning, to import resources. Movie, that's the folder, and then the file name movie.js. Now, before checking on my web browser, let's pay attention to the output, to the terminal at the bottom of my screen. You see failed to compile. Guys, whenever you get the message failed to compile, please ignore the web browser. Don't even try to check Google Chrome, because I'm sure it will report the same error. So let's try to focus on the problem. It says React must be in scope when using JSX. That's interesting, right? Yeah, you know what? That's correct. Was that Aaron? Oh, so you fixed your microphone issues already. Oh, cool. Nice, nice. Brilliant. Awesome, awesome. So Aaron is right. Guys, remember, on my right hand side, I got JavaScript code. Yeah, this is JavaScript, movie.js. However, inside of my JavaScript file, I'm using HTML is. Do you remember what, guys, what's the technical name for this markup language? JSX, that's correct, guys. So we got JSX or HTML. I don't really care at this stage of the journey. Yeah, we got something that is not clearly compatible with JavaScript because this is something that React made up. So if we really want to use HTML or JSX inside of JavaScript, we need to import React. You need to type that line, import React from React. This is a convention. You just need to get used to it. Now, once you do that, as you can see at the bottom of my screen, you get the compile successfully message proving that everything is okay. Questions? Hmm? Yep. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I think that was a very complicated question for a Monday morning, Vicky. Sorry if I go, no, I'm honest here. I don't know. Yeah. Okay. So yeah. So you want to find a file that is on a parent folder. Okay. So the question is how to do it. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, that's a good point. So, yeah, Vicky, let's do something. Let me go back to your question afterwards because I want to introduce new files. So once we got multiple files in parallel, it will be probably easier to tackle your problem. Yeah. So let me postpone your question. So I think Max had another question. Out of curiosity, yeah, that's a really good question. So you may see, guys, that at the moment we are writing function app. However, you may see, and I think as part of the videos that some of you are watching, that rather than typing function app, some people write class app extends React component, something like that, right? Yeah, so we will talk about that on Wednesday 13. So on Wednesday, we will see that in reality, there are two ways of writing functions. There is the sexy way, which is function app. That's the sexy because it's easier. That's the most simplistic way of writing a component. And there is the complicated way, which is creating classes. Okay? We'll see the differences and when to use one and when to use the other. For now, you can ignore the class. You can just stick to the functional approach. Cheers. Anything else? Let me ask you something. Can I rename movie with COVID? It won't work. Do you think it won't work? it will work. That's correct, guys. Even though the example is a bit unfortunate, it works. Why does it work? The reason why it works is because, guys, we're doing export default. Export default. That means that whatever you export will be captured here because that's the default. Yeah, so you can type whatever you want. It goes without saying that from a readability point of view, you shouldn't call it COVID, right? You should call it movie. Yeah? But technically speaking, when you do export default, you can import whatever. You can rename it however you want. Let me present you then something slightly different. So what happened? What happened if we remove the default? When you remove the default, the message, implicitly speaking, is you want to export multiple functions. Not just one, but many. So we need to do a few changes. First of all, that syntax, line number 2, is not correct anymore. Does anyone know how to import something that is exported as non-default? That's correct, Elena. You need curly braces or curly brackets surrounding your export. Yeah? So you see, now it will be the same result, same output. The difference is on the right hand side, the export is not default, and then the import needs the curly braces. Why is that? Because now, look, you can export good movie title, and then you can use another export called whatever, bad movie, whatever. Yeah? So in other words, you can export multiple functions. Bad movie title. So now here you can type good movie, comma, bad movie. You see that trick? And then, for instance, imagine that the first and the last movie are good and the second one is bad. So if I show you the result, you see good, bad, good. So now, yeah, that's the trick. So technically speaking, when you create a file, you can export multiple functions, yeah, without the default. Can I type export default twice? No, that won't work because export default. If I can type, guys, sorry, if I can type, yeah, export default. Look, failed to compile. Attempted to import error good movies, blah blah blah. So that won't work. That won't work. So when you got export default, that means hey, there is the single function being exported as default. If you want to export multiple functions, then you do that. Questions? That's a good question. That's a good question. What happened? What happened? What happened? Let's actually, we'll see. So let's present the problem first. So imagine that first of all you got movie, yeah, export default. That's what we've done before. Export default. That's the first thing you've done. But then 6 months later, you realize that in reality you wanted more components. So you want to have more granularity. I love the word. To decide how your movies will look like. So then, can you export other non-default? So can you have movie and then good movie and then, unsurprisingly, can you have bad movie? Okay, can you do that? Is the right-hand side correct? It is correct. It is correct. So the rule is if you put export default, that's the only export default. But apart from that, you can have other non-default exports. Yeah? And now the question is, can anyone tell me how can I import them all? Yep. Brilliant, Elena. That's fantastic. That's fantastic. That's absolutely brilliant. That's correct. You see, the rule is always the same. If the export is default, you import it without any brackets, without any of that. Yeah, movie. That's it. And then you can use it somewhere. If the exports are without the default, then you need to separate them with a comma surrounded by curly braces. That's the syntax, guys. That's the syntax. So you just need to get used to it. Will it work? I don't know. Yes. You see? Well, actually, let me rename the titles. Otherwise, that's a bit confusing. So you got movie title, good movie title, and eventually bad movie title. So then you see, movie title, that's the default, and then the two non-default exported components. What else, guys? Questions? No? Can anyone tell me why did I create a folder? What's the point of creating a folder for the movie? Modularity. Okay, what that means? What modularity means? Yeah, but fair enough. But I could just, yeah, Aaron. So yeah, I mean, guys, you all said meaningful stuff, right? But if I will have to buy an argument, I will buy Lawrence one. So if I have a single file, me personally, I don't see much benefit of wrapping the file into a folder. Yeah, I get your point, modularity, encapsulation, blah blah. But if it's a single file, personally, what's the difference of having a list of files or a list of folders with files? I don't see the advantage. However, look at what Lauren said. Technically speaking, if I now add a new file called, look, movie.css, I hope you agree with me that then there is a higher value of creating a folder. Because from an encapsulation point of view, as you said before, now I can wrap all my movie resources into a folder. We're talking about JavaScript and CSS, but we could be talking about pictures, videos, audio, whatever. Yeah, we could be talking about many different aspects of coding. So that's very interesting. Movie.css. Let me show you how to deal with CSS. The process is very similar to how we manage the JavaScript. So, look, for simplicity reasons, let me keep a single movie. Let me get rid of the other components, yeah? So yes, probably 3 movies, but just using the default movie title. So let me remove the good and the bad components, yeah? So 1, 2, and then that's pretty much it. So let me show you my favorite way of dealing with my CSS. That's a classic mistake with many developers. Many developers, you know what they do? They end up writing all their CSS into app.css. You see, the process is the same. We start over again. So with JavaScript, I told you, don't write all your JavaScript on app.js because eventually you'll end up having a huge file. With the CSS, that's literally the same process. Don't write all your CSS on app.css because eventually that file will become massive. So, how do we deal with this problem? Well, first of all, did you see, guys, the way we imported the CSS, app.css from app.javascript? You see, import app.css. So, look at what I'm doing on my movie.javascript, literally the same. Import movie.css. Yeah, that's the first thing. So now my CSS file will be rendered alongside the other CSS files. And now my question is, what's the best way of writing CSS? Let me show you my favorite way of dealing with the problem. So what I do every single time, I create a new file as part of a new folder. Guys, someone is typing very hard and this is breaking my ears, so please mute yourself if you're gonna make some noise. Thank you. So the first thing we do here is we create a class name on the root element, class name equals, and now can anyone figure out what's the name of the class I'm gonna facilitate? Movie, that's correct, movie, with capital M. You see, Guys, please pay attention to the semantics. I got a movie folder with a movie.css, with a movie.javascript, and movie.javascript has a function called movie, and movie function has a class name called movie. You see, I'm working on the predictability, discoverability of my code, if that makes any sense. Yeah? Div class name movie. So now on my CSS, look, what I type is .movie, and then of course I provide my styles, whatever they are. For instance, border 1 pixel, solid red, and then background color, whatever, yeah, background color yellow. So something like that, you see? So now my CSS is really well encapsulated. So if I show you the result, you see, I got for each movie, I got the border and the background color. Questions? What happened? Yeah. Go. Yeah. Yes. That's brilliant. That's correct, Aaron. That's correct. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So what we are trying to do here is some sort of delegation. Yeah. Eventually, you'll have hundreds, if not thousands, of components. So you don't want to delegate into app.js the responsibility of loading, rendering, everything. So what app.js is, it will just, bind with the main components, like movie. And then it will be up to movie to render the component and to load any relevant CSS files. Yeah? Let me ask you something. What happened if imagine that I got a label, class name, title. Yeah, because eventually you'll have, apart from the title, you have the synopsis, you have the picture, the scoring, whatever. You have many details about your movie. So let me move things around just for readability purposes. You see, I got my movie and I got my label. VS Code is complaining now. It shouldn't complain. You see, sometimes it takes a while to refresh the syntax evaluation of your code. So now I got a label, class name, title. So now look at what I'm typing and you tell me if that's right or wrong. Title, and then I don't know, font size 30 pixels. Yeah? I want to make my title larger. So that, first of all, that will work. You see, actually, let me increase it. I'm not talking about UX. I don't want you to evaluate how good this is from a UX point of view. But from a technical perspective, it works. I got massive titles. However, if you had to review that code as part of an interview process, what would you say about this? Is it something you like, you don't like? Why? So you want to use label.title, Vicky? Just label. All right. So you just want to use label. That's the point. You are making scalability fantastic. I love that. Look at the point, guys. I mean that you do that, right? And hey, it works. So you are happy, you go on holidays, Bahamas, all these things, right? Mojitos. And then someone somewhere else, you see, I'm not dealing with my movie component anymore. I want to add a description of my app. And so what I do is I write a label out of coincidence and say, here you will find the list of movie, blah blah, whatever. I'm using a label somewhere else. And then that person is like, hey, what the hell? Why my label is so huge? You see the problem? So we have created a global style, which is horrible. This is one of the biggest problems when scaling our software. The complexity of encapsulating not just the JavaScript but especially the CSS, because anyone using a label will be affected by that selector. So how do we solve the problem? Well, first of all, personally, I wouldn't use label. I would use title, because I think from a semantics point of view, it's a bit more readable, yeah, title. But even though now the problem is solved, still someone could use that class name as well, right? Class name title. So, this is less likely to happen, but title is a very generic name, so, it still may happen. So to me, the best solution possible is to namespace our CSS selectors. What that means, look at how cool this is. So what I've done here is, please focus on the movie component. So I'm pointing just here. And then try to find any element with class name title inside of it. Here you go. So now the font size will be only applied to that title, not to any other title. You see? So now the external title remains untouched, so it's not contaminated by our styles, and then just the movie titles have the massive size. Does it make sense? Questions? Yeah, so never ever do things like that, right? Because you are likely to contaminate others' code. Yeah? So always namespace your selectors. What else, guys? What's the specificity associated to this selector? Number 6, line number. How much? 20, that's correct. We got 10 plus 10, 20. Yeah. Cool. Anything else, people? So to me, this session, I think the main benefit is not in the short term. So guys, long term, this is vital. Yeah, you will have massive issues if you don't separate your components. Also, even in the short term, even if you are building something quite simple, even if you need to send an exercise to an employer, yes, part of a test, of a job interview, whatever, just make sure you follow these guidelines, because these details prove how ready you are about working on large scale projects. Yeah? So anything else, any final words? No? Cool. Thank you very much, guys. Yeah. Go for it, Elena. Go for it. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. That's a really good point. That's a really good question. So you may see many developers, rather than typing export default movie, they type the function, and eventually at the bottom they type export default movie. Yeah, that's correct. That's correct. I wouldn't say that's a bad practice, but from a personal point of view, and then I would like to make a clear statement. So I'm not talking about best practice anymore. Now I'm talking about my personal appetite. Based on my personal appetite, that's not good. That's not good. Why? 2 reasons. First of all, you need to add a new line, yeah, for your export default. So to me, it's easier to forget. Let me give you another reason. What happened if because of whatever reason, you do some coding here and blah 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 and blah 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 and blah 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 and whatever? Can you tell me, looking at my screen, what is my movie.js component exporting? You don't know. No, you don't know. You don't know because you are exporting at the very end of your file. To me, getting attached about what's the public method being exported of a file is vital, because that gives me a feeling about what can I use somewhere else. If that line is at the very bottom, it's just making everything more complicated. Yeah. However, if I got it there, yeah, of course it could be still hidden, but it's less likely to be hidden because it will be on top of the function, not at the very bottom of my function. Yeah. But once again, this is just my personal coding style. Yeah, I'm not gonna tell you the other style is bullshit. Actually, look, React, Facebook, they are using it. Yeah, they are using it. I'm not a big fan of that. I think I never done that. But once again, so to me the important thing is to be able to defend your strategy. Yeah. So if you follow my style, at least you can explain why you are doing this. If you follow the other style, there are reasons. I'm not going to tell you this is based on spirits or something. I'm sure there are reasons to do that, but to me, the reasons developers follow are not strong enough compared to what I presented you here. From my side, so I almost forgot to say something. So Vicky before she mentioned how to access a file that is on a parent folder. So does anyone know how to access? Let me present you a problem. So I got on my src folder, I got a new file called stuff.css. Imagine that because of whatever dark reason, so I'm not even going to explain, I'm going to defend that, from movie.js, you see, I want to load a CSS file called stuff.css, which is on a parent folder. You see, it's not on the same folder, so it's on a parent folder. So can anyone tell me how to import stuff.css from movie.javascript? That's correct, Maxim. That's correct. You see, with .. we go one level up. So if we're where are we originally? We're in the movie folder. One level up, we go to src. So once we're on src, we can easily identify the location of the stuff.css file. Of course, you can do .. you know, to the infinite and beyond. Yeah, of course. I'll tell you something. If you ever see something like that on someone's code, that's smelly. That's very smelly. Like, why the hell you need to go 24 levels up to find the file? It is probably a good time to think about refactoring, moving things around. Yeah, but that's a different story. Technically speaking, that's still doable. That's still possible. Anything else? No? Alright, so thank you very much, guys. Elijah, we can stay now to have a look to your issue with VS Code. Apart from that, thank you very much, guys. We'll see you later on.